fixtures. Digicel, the network for everyone, everywhere.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Guyana has commenced paying ExxonMobil and its co-venturers, Hess and Sinok, millions of US dollars in decommissioning costs to clean up the third and fourth developments in the Stabroek Block, even though these projects are to commence oil production. Decommissioning refers to the cleanup and restoration of the ocean floor following the life of an oil project. However, although the third and fourth projects are yet to commence production activities, the financial documents from the oil companies for 2022 revealed that monies were deducted last year for decommissioning. Importantly, the third Stabroek Block project, Payara, will commence production activities in the last quarter of this year. Meanwhile, the fourth development, Yellowtail, is not expected to start up until 2027. It is also important to note that decommissioning funds will not be required until 20 years after the project would have started, since these resources would be used to restore the environment until production activity cease at the wells. And former Minister of Natural Resources Raffel Trotman has strongly refuted allegations that he acted as a rogue element in the negotiation and signing of the Stabroek Block production sharing agreement between the Guyanese government and an ExxonMobil-led consortium. In his book, From Destiny to Prosperity, Trotman addresses these accusations and provides insight into the decision-making process that led to the now highly controversial agreement. Trotman stated that both the former president, David Granger, and the cabinet were fully aware of the agreement being negotiated. He noted also that several weeks later, the former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, had even tabled a motion for a resolution to be adopted by the National Assembly in accordance with the Petroleum Act, further attesting to their involvement in and approval. One of the main criticisms that was also leveled against Trotman was that he ignored expert advice during the negotiation process. And as the country's public debt steadily increases, with at least $7 to $9 billion more in loans being added to the country's existing arrears this year, President Ali has assured that Guyana has the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio in the Caribbean. The head of state gave this assurance on Saturday evening during an address at the La Primavera Banquet Hall in Ontario, Canada. He was focused on the country's development and the investment opportunities that await the diaspora in Canada when he gave specifics regarding the state of the economy. Ali went on to tell the audience that he has often been asked where Guyana would access loans at a fixed rate and more so at a low interest rate, especially when the world today lends at 5.5% variable rate. The president, however, pointed out that each of Guyana's new projects was funded by loans at a fixed rate less than 3.5%. And moving on, former magistrate Don Adrian Cush and Attorney-at-Law Darren Wade on Monday pledged to form a legal team seeking justice for a 16-year-old schoolgirl allegedly raped by PPPC local government minister Nigel Dharamlal. Cush and Wade made the pledge at a protest held at Square of the Revolution by members of the opposition and citizens demanding justice for the teen. The teen made a statement to the police accusing the minister of rape and sodomy. An investigation was done and a case file was sent to the Director of Public Prosecution, Shalimar Alihak, for legal advice. The DPP has returned the file to investigators and advised that they conduct further investigations into the matter. According to the police force, detectives contacted the schoolgirl for further statements, but she reportedly told them that she no longer wishes to proceed with the matter. In other news, the Child Advocacy Center, ChildLink, has distanced itself from any actual or perceived involvement in any alleged harassment, fatigue, or frustration of the 16-year-old girl. The young woman reportedly dropped the case against Darmalal, sparking public outrage, and many have questioned what role organizations such as ChildLink played in managing the young woman while she was in protective custody. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is your news at noon. We'll return shortly after the break.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. The 29-year-old fisherman who reportedly beat his wife Bibi Nasifa Baksh, 48 years old, to death on Sunday was on Monday morning arrested by the police. The suspect, Shivnanand Henry of Digruton Klein, West Coast Demerara, is presently in police custody where the investigation is ongoing. We were told that Henry admitted to investigators that he gave Baksh several slaps but denied using the wood to lash her. He said that he only used the wood to lash the woman's daughter. It is understood that he also acknowledged that he was aware of her being dead and had left the house when he made the discovery. Baksh died sometime around 5:30 at her Eidflot, West Coast Demerara residence. It was reported that the couple's relationship was filled with domestic abuse that led to frequent fights and quarrels. On Sunday, one of their fights ended deadly. Amid calls for a transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy, Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said such a transition must be just and equitable. His comments seem to align with Vice President Bara Jagdeo and others here that Guyana must be allowed to develop its oil and gas resources to benefit its people. Back in February at the International Energy Conference, Jagdeo had said that countries like Guyana and Suriname have a right to develop their oil and gas resources. And the teenage girl who is accused of starting the fire at Madia Secondary School female dormitory, which claimed the lives of 20 children, is expected to be slapped with 20 murder charges when she makes her second court appearance. On May 29th, the teen suspect was slapped with 19 murder charges and remanded to the Juvenile Holding Center. The day after the suspect was remanded, the 20th fire victim succumbed. And a 20-year-old man was on Friday remanded to prison for allegedly stabbing his father to death on Father's Day. The accused, Ethan Hernandez of Seafield Sophia, appeared at the Georgetown Magistrates Court on June 30th, where he was charged with murder. The police had reported that the deceased, who is a Venezuelan national, and his son, who allegedly suffers from a mental illness, had an argument over food that day. Investigators were told that the argument escalated when the suspect reportedly armed himself with a knife and stabbed the victim to the back of his left thigh. And in other news, Minister of Home Affairs Robson Ben on Sunday reminded prison officers of the important role they play in maintaining law and order. The minister underscored too that prison officers should balance security and control with humanity and justice in their execution of their duties. Minister Ben was at the time addressing the officers at the Director of Prisons quarterly muster and general inspection of officers. He called on the prison officers to help reform prisoners in order to prepare them to be reintegrated into society. Acknowledging the number of resources available, the minister encouraged the prison officers to play a meaningful role in helping to reform prisoners and preparing them for return to their communities as positive contributors to the development of society. And that does it for your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. But before we go, we have to be a little blunt by turning the pages of today's Kaieteur newspaper. Withdrawal of complaint does not invalidate seriousness of allegations. The purported withdrawal of a criminal complaint against sitting PPPC local government minister Nigel Dharamlal does not invalidate the seriousness of the allegations of rape of a schoolgirl that have been leveled against him. It is well known that victims of sexual assault may experience immense pressure, fear, and societal backlash, leading them to retract their accusations. In such cases, the justice system must ensure that every possible avenue is explored to provide justice to victims, particularly young teenagers. And that does it for News at Noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening. Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
Welcome to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. I'm GHK Lal on the National Outlook. It's Tuesday, July the 4th. It is a national holiday, the 247th anniversary in the United States, not in Guyana, in the United States. 4th of July, July 4th, barbecues and picnics, and some beer drinking and music and so forth. May they have a blessed holiday, 4th of July in America. And may the American citizens living here also do. Now, we have this matter involving the Minister of Local Government. And the latest development as carried by Kaieteur newspaper last Thursday was that the DPP wants further police probe into the alleged rape of teen girl by Minister Dharamlal. Alleged rape. I think that DPP is crossing her T's. I think that's a good idea. I think the DPP is playing it conservatively. That's also a good idea. But we must not have, and I hope that we are not seeing the beginning of what I call a carousel, a back and forth between the DPP's office and the Guyana Police Force. This has been known to happen in high-profile cases, and it does not do well for the confidence of the work put out by both the DPP's office and the Guyana Police Force. I think the negative side could be that some citizens, quite a few of them, will say the DPP's office is buying time so that things can be put into place by the People's Progressive Party government. Whether that is so or not, the DPP's office is a constitutionally protected one. She has a right to do her due diligence to the fullest, and Minister Dharamlal has a right, a sacred right, to due process at its completeness, totally. I think that is what is being done here. We've got to cut through the noise. We've got to cut through the passions and get to the bottom of what really happened here 6 months plus later. We owe it to the victim, alleged victim. We owe it to the minister who stands accused. And we owe it to ourselves as citizens and as a country. Let us go as quickly as we can. And if it means that we have to go back and forth, then I think that's unavoidable. And we should let that process unfold and reveal itself. And then when it's done, we can say all that we want to say, good or bad, for or against. We must be respectful enough, we must be sober enough to let our procedures and processes run their fullest course. I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio 99.1, 99.5 FM. Thank you for listening to the National Outlook.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio. Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.